This is the Henry Flagler home in Palm Beach, Florida. It's of course now a museum. Absolutely beautiful from the outside. Backs onto the Intercoastal Waterway. Just gorgeous. Grounds are beautifully kept. Here we are inside the main lobby. I mean, breathtaking. I don't think I've ever been in a building as incredible as this. There are statues of Apollo, the Greek gods. And the ceiling, the painting, is supposedly the god of wisdom. His angels are coming to earth to advise man. That's a bust of Caesar. And up on the wall we have a portrait of Henry Flagler himself. We've just left the library and now we're in the music hall, which is attached to it. Flaglers only came here 6 to 7 weeks a year. And actually the Everglades started literally at their back door. Florida was not really developed during this period of time at all. Again, incredible work. This house was built in 18 months by the use of more modern technology. They had steel beams, etc., plaster, and quite modern technology. These are electric lights, which was very new. It had only been around maybe 17 years at that point, and very few homes had electricity. Today's standards, the rooms are still somewhat dark, but back then, since they were so used to living in candlelight, these rooms appeared to them to be extremely bright. You had central heating throughout the house, with the pipes going to all the rooms and individual controls in the rooms. And also a telephone system in the home. We're now in the inner courtyard of the home, and this played a very important part in climate control for the entire building. Either the rooms came directly into the courtyard or indirectly, and the breezes, because we have water on two sides of the home, helped to cool the house. And of course the greenery set added to the aesthetic value of the home. In the center there's a statue which is the goddess Venus, and that was brought over from Italy, and you can see the lighting on each side of the doors were quite incredible. They came from a Spanish fort. And the architecture really is absolutely marvelous. Grounds are beautifully kept. So much marble throughout the whole home. I haven't learned yet what that cost, but it would be a pretty penny even today. And on each side of the door here we have coats of arms of some Spanish families. Here we're taking a look at the billiard room. Very dark. Seems to me that Flagler would have had a little trouble seeing his balls in this room. Okay, I had to throw that in. And here we are in the grand ballroom. And there's a photo taken, I gather, of one of the big balls that they had here. Everyone is dressed up in their finery. As this says, the home is called Whitehall, and Henry Flagler's built it for his wife, Mary Lily Keenan Flagler, and he gave her the deed in 1902 when it was completed. And when she died in 1917, she left the house to her niece, Louise Lewis. Now, she could not maintain the home because it was far too expensive. So with a group of investors, they built a hotel connecting the back of the house. And it overlooks Lake Worth. And in its heyday, the Whitehall Hotel hosted people like Greta Garbo and Walt Disney. And this, of course, was the addition for the hotel that was added onto the back of the home. But in the 1950s, the hotel was not doing so well and it fell into a state of disrepair. So they had to look at redeveloping the property. Now, when they went to redevelop it in 1959, Henry Flagler's granddaughter, Jean Flagler Matthews, upon learning it was going to be demolished, she purchased the property and set it up as the Henry Morrison Flagler Museum. And most of the hotel tower was demolished, leaving only the first 2 floors for event space, etc. And she acquired many of the original furnishings for Whitehall and persuaded friends and descendants to contribute objects and artifacts to complete the restoration. And in 1960, the rebirth of the Flagler Museum was completed with a grand ball. And since 1960, it has hosted over 4 million visitors. As we can see, it is absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous property. As it says, this is the breakfast room done in an English style, and it was used by the Flagler family when they really didn't have company, so it was a little more intimate for them. And this is the main dining room, which was done in the French Renaissance style, done fairly dark to represent a very masculine trend then in dining rooms. And lastly, we have the drawing room. Obviously, this is where they entertained people. This is the back of the home with part of the hotel that was still left. And it's right on the Intercoastal Waterway. Absolutely gorgeous views of some very expensive yachts. I should come down and anchor here. Actually, it looks very beautiful to do so. Pavilion in the back on the water. You can actually now get a bite of something to eat here. Incredible ceilings, and that's his personal rail car. And this is really interesting. I don't know if you can really read that, but for over 100 years, wicker wheelchairs played a major role in America's tourism location. In 1893, Chicago World's Columbian Exposition, they were used by seminary students to move visitors around. Now, Henry Flagler didn't really like the idea of horses and automobiles on Palm Beach, so this left the wheelchair as one of the few alternatives. And he employed over 200 wheelchair men at the Palm Beach Hotel. You could hire one for the entire day for $5 to wheel you around. And of course, once he died, etc., then automobiles, etc., became quite regular on Palm Beach. That would be a really cool way to travel around back then. And this is the railroad. In 1913, he built the railway down through the Florida Keys to Key West. And that was quite an undertaking. As I mentioned, this is his personal rail car. Who's that devil in the mirror? This obviously was his bedroom. And his private bathroom.
She was that way. We might be going backwards.
Well, that's a tiny kitchen. But all the modern conveniences back then. As I say, the property was surrounded on two sides by water. Palm Beach was named for the coconut groves that were common along the eastern shore of Lake Worth. It was this natural feature that first attracted Henry Flagler to the area and the world's largest resort, which he built. He was one of the founders, along with Rockefeller, of Standard Oil, which was, and I think is, one of the wealthiest corporations in the world. He didn't want the grounds to be too fancy like you'd find in a lot of places in Europe, etc. He wanted them kept fairly basic, so people would be more impressed with the building than the grounds.